Let's take a look at the eBay cast T25 K-series manifold. These are cheap, but they're not as cheap as the T3 version of the same. I think that the T25 is going to be a really good match for K-series that are looking to make like less than 400 wheel. It's a pretty nice piece. It's nicer than the T3 variety. We'll take a look at that next. I'm expecting it to arrive within days. But similar to the T3, 38 mil wastegate. So let's get into it and look at some of the fine details. So first off, the cast manifolds tend to actually be flat. A lot of the welded manifolds will get some warping during that weld process. Have to be flattened after the fact. This T25, unlike the T3 variety, the bolt pattern is like totally on point for all 5 mounting points, and they're large enough to fit like a titanium stud with the kind of flared base. So I'm quite happy with that. One thing I'll point out, so looking at the outlet side of the head, you'll notice there's a generous lip to gasket. Affords for porting if you're into that. These heads make great power, totally stock. But taking a look at the inlet side of the manifold, you can see the blue marks there. So there's a little bit of casting shift, but we're going to be able to just carbide that out real quick. I'll show you the process on honing out these things or porting out these things. I really like porting cast iron. It's very forgiving. You know, it's just dense enough to not cut super quickly, so you're making mistakes overcutting, but soft enough that it peels out pretty quick, and then it finishes off with the cones nice and smooth. You throw some ceramic on that, it looks real nice. So speaking of ceramics, this T25 manifold does have some kind of like coating. It's almost like a light nitriding or something, but as you can see, like right out of the box, there's already surface rust in areas that didn't get oiled. So I'm going to go ahead and coat this for the thermal protection, anti-cracking, heat cycling, slowing, make it more durable. Likewise, on the T25 gasket side, a little bit of meat to take out, but there's like plenty of lip here, so it's just going to be all beneficial. There's actually kind of a bit of a hard edge right there, so for relieving stress, it'll be good to smooth that out anyway. But again, very flat. So looking at these surfaces, they are flat to the straight edge, but they're fairly rough, like they're not super smooth. I am going to use MLS gasket on the T25 side, but I'll probably block this flat to make it seal better. Simply using a graphite gasket, and not the Chinese graphite, but I'm using a Felpro graphite. They hold up much better. But to get that to seal on this super rough machine surface. Wastegate on this is 38 mil, but I'm going to convert it up to a 44 using this kind of adapter. I haven't taken a look at it versus an actual 38 mil gate flange, but there's a tiny lip there. I'll get rid of that just to increase flow. Try to make the wastegate as boost control effective as possible, and it'll take like just seconds with carbide and some sanding cones. So let's take this outside and start cutting away at it. First step on this, I'm going to just chase the threads with M8 by 1.25 tap. Just clean up the threads. Sometimes cast iron threads can be a bit like chowdery, and we just want those bolts to go in nice and smooth. And then I'll also run a carbide cone over them at the end to just deeper the entry point. So not a ton of resistance, meaning these things are cut pretty clean. But let's be sure of that. I put a little bit of Tap Magic oil on it before starting. So this should be a nice, easy process. And I'll see if I can get the camera to show you. But just the littlest bit of debris cut out there, which is kind of exactly what we want to see. But now those bolts are going to run in real smooth. It's got those threads cleaned out nicely, chamfered into the top, and ready to take some bolts. Let's move on to porting. Let's talk about porting steel real quick, whether it's cast iron or stainless or whatever else. So you're going to want to use a small flute style, and comparing that to like the larger flute variety used for aluminum. These single cut small flutes do great on aluminum as well, but they gum up a little bit. So I don't know if you can tell, but a bunch of aluminum bits in that one. And you're going to need to dissolve it out with muriatic acid. And I like to use electric quite often. I've also got the pneumatic. Pneumatic is a little bit better for like control, because it gives you that better like low speed capability. The electric is single speed, right? You set it to 1,000 RPM or 2,000 RPM, whatever, and then you're cutting at that same speed. So get it chucked in. I like to fire it up briefly. Sometimes these bits will be out of balance. Once we get our carbide pass down, the bulk material removal, you want to fine it out. So I got like 60, 80, and 120 grit sanding rolls, different lengths of shanks to help get down there. And then I really like to do this kind of like flapper. I don't really know what this is called. Some kind of like flapper mandrel or something. It's basically, it's just a piece of steel with a slit in it for you to fit in these pieces of strips of sanding paper. You can conveniently get the paper in nice long strips, so it's a very easy process to load these up, and it smooths it out real nice, particularly when you're porting a circle. So let me get at it. I'll do a quick carbide cut, and the only real piece of advice I have is to let the tool do the cutting. Don't really lean into the tool. You'll kind of load it up quickly, and it'll cut a little faster, but it's going to increase heat generation. And you really just want to do a nice smooth cutting, right? You don't want to cut divots in. You just want to do nice, even passes back and forth. So let's give it a go. So you'll notice I'm not even holding the piece. This guy's a little heavy, which helps. Often I'll vise these things up. But it relates to my commentary on not leaning into the piece. You know, we're just knocking material off the surface very slowly. If I lean into it, it's going to then torque the piece, right? So I'll cut a little bit more. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I'm going to be at this for like an hour. But I'll do the carbide step, and then we'll do a little brief look at the cone step, take a look at the final result. Got the bolt cut done on the T25 flange. So just trying to keep it smooth and make sure that there's a nice smooth transition in here without creating a sharp edge. So I'm going to quickly hog out the gate hole and also the runners. And then I'll show you the sanding cone portion. And I guess the only thing to mention is on this side, because the inner runner diameter is smaller than this opening, all I'm trying to do is prevent the exhaust from hitting that ridge. So I'm just going to bevel it in a little and then shape it in with a sanding cone. So this shouldn't be too much work. Bolt cut on the manifold flange side went well. Didn't take a lot. Some areas need a little bit beveled in. But we'll smooth this all out with a sanding cone. Same thing with the wastegate. It was only like 1 millimeter of cut required, so just zipped it around, making sure to get it nice and straight down into the manifold and eliminate the hard edge back here. So we're going to switch out our bits, going from our carbide onto sanding cones. I'm going to start off with an 80 grit. And I like to start with 60, but I've run out of 60 cones, so I got 100 of them on order. And yeah, not much to this. It cuts very slow, gives you like a visual reference. So you're just going to start smoothing out, looking where it's hitting. And I've already got my outside diameter pretty close, so I'm going to try not to hit the OD of the hole. Well, ID of the hole, actually, but try not to hit that edge until the final pass, and then I'll just give it one final little skim over to blend into everything else we've done. So there was a good example out of balance. And in this case, it's just a little bit of bend in the cone. It's going to straighten itself out once we start wearing away at it. So only thing I'm going to do is start it inside, just in case it comes flying apart, which happens once in a while. Wear your safety glasses for this process. I'm starting kind of deep into the original like cast surface and then working forward to smooth into where we cut the carbide. You could honestly do it the opposite way, but I like to always kind of port in the direction of the airflow. Maybe I'm just being a little OCD. For a final step here, I got some 220 paper and I'm just going to give it a gentle massage all around. And this is really to knock the burr off the edge and anything inside that's kind of been left behind. So there we go on the T25 flange side ported out. And I'll try to get like a straight shot into it. It's kind of hard to get the right angle. But we open it up pretty significantly. It's going to really help flow. And I just got to do the same thing to the manifold flange to head side and the wastegate side, and then we'll pull it in and take a close look at it. Back inside, finished with porting. So let's take a look here. First, that wastegate hole. I got the gasket in. It's all basically in its final form. Nice smooth transition between the two. No ridges. It was a little difficult to get down into that right angle, but it's been blunted, so it's no longer sharp, which will help. T25 side, nice open area. There's a little bit of shaping that could happen if I wanted to be like ultra precise, but for the power levels that the turbo that attaches to this is going to make, I don't think it makes a ton of sense, so we're just going to run it like that. And then a look at the new manifold inlet side. And let's take a comparative with the gasket. There we go. So nice straight shot in without any overhang. So this worked out real well. I want to say that I recommend this T25 manifold. It's quite a bit nicer than the T3, but obviously you're going to be limited on turbo choice. Something like a GT 28, 71, or 76, if that's even available, would probably pair real well with this. We looked at like a eBay G25 550 the other week, and that is probably going to end up bolting to this thing. That'll be an exceptional pairing. But you're looking at getting real rapid spool and tons of torque and a good amount of power. You know, it's still going to double the power of a fairly standard K24. So if you like that video, let me know, drop a comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.